Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day you're watching this video at. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about one particular problem that some of you that do molecular modeling may encounter, and you're not entirely sure what to do here. Sometimes it's going to be very frustrating, and that's dealing with file errors and errors in execution of software, specifically things like Gaussian, that give you interesting errors. And how do we handle those? Because those can often, you kind of want to pull your hair out a lot of times, right? So let's go in and let's generate. I'm going to go into Mo, and I'm just going to generate a file. And actually, let's do this. Let us, I'm going to go to PubChem. I'm going to pull up a file. There's PubChem right there. I'm going to do a search for pseudoephedrine. I need something with that's going to have a different complications and maybe some stereochemistry, and let's just see what we're doing. Now, pseudoephedrine, this is basically the compound in Sudafed, which is a nasal decongestion. And so it's actually kind of an important drug. Of course, it's an alpha adrenergic receptor agonist, and it also, in the pharmacy, you can only buy a certain amount of this. They won't sell you too much because, interestingly enough, you could actually use this if you have these skills. You could use this to make another drug called methamphetamine, which is illegal. So they kind of want to limit that. Let's get the SMILES code for pseudoephedrine. And I'm going to come over here to my builder. I'm going to just drop that into place. Now, for the name, I'm going to put the official IUPAC name here in my name, because I want something especially complicated. Wait a minute. Need to cut and paste here. Let's put this in. Really complicated. Not sure why it's not. Let's see. Now it's giving me a hard time. So let's cut and paste this. There we go. So now I have the name in here, right? Let's also say that we're going to put a space in our file name. We've got a comma. We've got a really long file name. I wanted to make it especially complex just to see if I can elicit an error, right? Which is kind of weird. Most of the time we don't want errors. Right now I'm trying to actually give myself an error for this demo, right? So here's pseudoephedrine. You'll see we do have a chiral carbon right here. We have a second chiral carbon, so this is the stereochemistry. Hence, the name has the S's in them. That indicates your Kahn-Ingold-Prelog rules for nomenclature of chiral compounds, if you remember that. I'm going to go ahead and energy minimize this with just simple amber force field. Let's get that going. Now let's say I want to initiate a quantum mechanical calculation in Gaussian. And so we're going to go ahead and put my Gaussian. I'm just going to do a very simple calculation because I don't want it to take a whole lot of time. I'm not going to turn on polarizability or anything. We just want to do connectivity and vibrational frequencies. For my name, I'm just going to cut and paste the name right in here. Let's go ahead and oh yeah, that's perfect. We've got a weird character down here as well too, so that's also pretty good. is sometimes if you're not careful, it can give you interesting errors, right? And I'm going to do nproc shared equals 6, so we can turn on that. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to save my file name, and let's put the file name as, I'm going to put a .com suffix, and here's my total file name right here, right? Let's put a space in here just for fun, right? Okay, that looks good. And so now I'm all set up to execute in Gaussian. So let's see what happens, right? I'm going to exit out of Mo. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to look at my .com file. So now, one of the things you notice in Linux is this file right here. In Ubuntu, if your file name is in single quotes, so if you notice that's got apostrophes around it, right? That's Ubuntu's way of kind of telling you there's some weird characters in here and it's kind of excessively complex. Sometimes, software, when you're executing code, software can interfere with things like commas and parentheses and hashtags and other things. So what the operating system has to do is escape those characters in order to work with them, right? So Ubuntu kind of helps us out by putting them in quotes already, and so that's kind of the operating system's way of dealing with things, right? So let's try and go through, and I'm just going to cut and paste this into Gaussian, and then I'll cut and paste another, but I want this to be a G09 file for my output, right? So again, the left arrow indicates I'm putting the .com file into Gaussian, and then the right arrow indicates, we've got some word wrapping, but the right arrow then indicates I want this G09 file to be my output file. So let's try and run that. Oh my God, I got a segmentation violation. Core dumped. What does that mean? Well, you know what most people, when they get errors like this, let's just kind of go to Google and copy that error and say, error segmentation violation. What is a segmentation violation, right? And so this will kind of tell you what it is. And what does it mean? What can we do about it, right? Essentially, what is a segmentation violation? So basically, when you're executing code, it needs a continuous stream of data. So let's think that you're on your cell phone, and you're walking around, you're kind of happy, you're doing stuff, and then you drop your phone, and your phone drops down the elevator shaft. And suddenly, you no longer have that stream of constant input from your cell phone because your phone's now at the bottom of the elevator shaft, and it's probably also in many pieces, hence the cell phone has been segmented, right? Unfortunately, I am not in an elevator shaft, so my phone's actually fine, right? Trust me though, I've actually dropped my phone down an elevator shaft, and I've had that segmentation fault happen where my brain no longer has that constant input to my dopaminergic nervous system, and what do I do, right? Okay, so the same thing happens to a computer software. You're executing code, you get to a point, it can't read any code because there's an error in the file somewhere. So what you have to do is open up the input file and figure out where the error is, where can it not read data, right? So if we kind of open that input file, let's take a look. Here's my Gaussian input file. And so first of all, everything you want to inspect things fairly well. You want to make sure that like your Hartree-Fock in this case, 631G, that works, that looks good. Now, the file name, yeah, that can be kind of tricky. All these characters are just weird. You're going to simplify yourself if you don't put spaces in file names and you don't use complicated characters like commas and parentheses, right? So let's change this to sudo ephedrine, right? And then I think also we only want one space because sometimes these are all of our internal coordinates in Gaussian, and so if there's like a excess space here, it can't find the file either. So I want to make sure that's set up correctly, right? So then we save our file. Now then, my file name is still pretty complicated here. So again, we're going to simplify our life a lot better by just simply using the name, very simple English word if we can. Again, don't use spaces, don't use parentheses, don't use dash and just weird characters, just very simple. If you do want to put a space, you could put an underscore character in, and sometimes that just helps us. I don't think there's a reason to use an underscore here, but that's something we could do, right? So now I've got my file renamed, sudoephedrine.com. Here it is down here, G09. It's a lot easier to work with. I'm going to change this to G09. And you'll notice now I'm executing Gaussian fairly normally. I should get a fairly normal execution. And Gaussian's now happy. What I can also do is I can go to another terminal window, and I can go to top and just see, okay, L502, that's executing. I can watch that. As it's executing, I can tail the G09 file. This will output, by default, the last 10 lines of my program, so I can kind of see what it's doing. What's nice is when it's done, it'll say normal termination of Gaussian, and that's what we're looking for, right? Where here we've just reached initial convergence of Gaussians, so it's still kind of running. This is just an easy way to monitor jobs and that sort of thing, right? We're still executing Gaussian here. But that's kind of the way to just see, you know, when you have errors and issues, go to Google and, you know, take the error. Now, if there was an error in the file name, I can just cut and paste that error to Google, and then I can cut it, and then I can paste it here, right? One other thing to do, Google's your friend, right? You can also say common Gaussian 09 input errors, and look at this. There's a lot of different things. So common Gaussian 09 input errors include incorrect atom types or symbols, missing an incorrect charge or multiplicity values, invalid geometry specifications, etc. And so there's more information. This is on GitHub. The first thing that came up was the AI, of course. Interestingly enough, if you don't want this AI, the way to eliminate Google AI from answering a Google search is to cuss in your Google search, right? So instead of searching for Gaussian 09 input errors, I'd say, what are some effing Gaussian 09 input errors? You'd, of course, have to actually cuss, and then that's a way of the AI doesn't respond to cussing. So if you don't want the AI, just go ahead and cuss in your search term. But you also find a lot of, especially if you cut and paste the exact Gaussian input error, you'll actually get a lot of help files and a lot of forum results, and that'll be very useful to search for, right? And now my Gaussian output file is finished, so now I can look at my output file, and let's just go to the end. I have normal termination of Gaussian. That took me 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes to run, and now I have a normal file that I can work with. So that's how to deal with errors I used Gaussian as this example in this case, but if you have other software, I think any other software that runs at the command line, such as NAMD, or any other Linux software that you're using, I think that's that's a useful thing to do. So I hope you like this video. You can go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel if you want more information, so that's helpful. And I will see you again in the next video after I finish debugging. Well, actually I'm done debugging, but I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you.